Here we're going to talk about licenses and permits. Overall, it's important to remember that licenses and permits are a very small source of income for local organizations, governments, and stuff like that. A license is an authorization to act or engage in activity. Think of it like a driver's license. We can also do like business licenses and then certain other licenses to perform certain acts like electrician's license, a plumber's license, and so forth. There's also the license that acts as a permit to engage in a specific activity, like building a new facility or a new shed or a new house or something like that. Then we can look at fees or whatnot from government sources. So this has long been our source of revenue for state and local governments. The gray share is transfer payment for public welfare. So we're looking at money from the federal government from various licenses to do stuff like work on highways, toward education, hospitals, housing, community development, and other things like that. They receive a large amount of money that's transferred from the federal government that is gathered through licenses, fees, and permits. Historically, Parks and Recreation Services, whether it's at the state or local level, has always received a very small percentages of those monies. Even with that, in the last 10 years or so, there's been even a decline in those funds as well. So, one thing specifically I thought would be cool to mention is the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And this is funding that trickles down to the state and local agencies from the federal government. So there's money put into that fund from oil and gas leases and such, and it's given to states on a certain allocation, and then a state can fund certain projects at the local level. And so there's other things that do that as well, like National Recreation Trails Fund, the highway system, and stuff like that. But the Land and Water Conservation Fund is used a lot for parks and recreation access and development. Then we can move on to gratuitous income. Grants are a very important aspect of the income development process for a parks and recreation or a nonprofit agency. So fundraising is an organized process to seek out gifts and support for different improvements or services that these agencies provide. And as far as grants and cultivating those gifts, the growth of that has been dramatic over the last couple of decades, where many public park and rec agencies even have their own nonprofit foundation to just work on that solely. So you think about like a state parks foundation or a parks and wildlife foundation, or even at the local level, the municipality sometimes will have these as well. It really overall, you got to think about fundraising and grant seeking a little bit separately, but they're very intertwined as well as far as developing that whole package. Now we can look at earned income. So this consists of any kind of resources, mostly cash, that's generated from fees and charges that's assessed by the organization or department, right? So as we mentioned before, these can be program fees, charges for using the equipment, the facilities, the area. We can have sales from the gift shop or the pro shop with golf. All those things are part of the earned income aspect. And then we can also look at like entry fees as well. So I gave a little example here, as you can see, of different entry fees to get into a park per se. So just a FYI, fiscal investments can also be considered earned income. Overall, earned income has the greatest area of growth as far as getting income or resources for a leisure service organization, whatever kind or type you have. No longer are these organizations focusing solely on grants and gratuitous and all that kind of compulsory income and all that, right? We're looking at earned income, making money, and so we've shifted our focus to be more entrepreneurial and business minded or focused, so that we can start to offset some of those reductions of income from those other areas. So even for nonprofit organizations, as much as 75% in some cases of their operating budgets can come from earned income. Earned income is derived primarily from fees and charges, and these terms have become pretty interchangeable. The term fees has come to be associated with the delivery of programs and services. So when we think about earned income, we look at rental fees, and these are charged for the exclusive use of an area or property. So think about like a pavilion or a picnic area or a baseball field, right? And the revenue from these rentals or these rental fees can be used for a variety of things, whether it's recover the cost of the purchase of certain items. So if they're utilizing a picnic table during their rental, and we have to replace a picnic table per year in this general area, those fees collected throughout the year can go purchase a new picnic table. Then we have special use fees, and these are usually for charging for above and beyond service. So you can think about things like, if we have a cleaning fee, if you clean yourself, it's just $100. If we clean it after you're done, it's $150 for the rental, right? So we're charging a little extra for some special services in that regard. Then we look at user and program fees, and these are charges made for the use of facility or participation in activity, program, or service. And I think about this as like if you're involved in the volleyball league at your local rec center, kind of thing. And these fees can be used for a lot of different stuff depending on their allocation, whether that's by policy or just by default. So we think about these fees going into operational and maintenance type buckets, right? So we need money to operate and maintain the facility, and then we can use it to do other things if it's allocated as such, related to capital development or debt retirement, stuff like that. And then we have sales revenue. So this is stuff where we sell goods or products, right? And this is, think of things like the gift shop, the stores, concession stands, restaurants, and that kind of thing. If we've got a pro shop at our golf course, then we're probably going to sell drinks and food and apparel and stuff you need to go golfing. And it's going to be, they're going to be purchased at a profit for the entity, right? So those things can be also provide revenue. In addition to the fee to golf, you also can sell a Gatorade, a bag of chips, or golf tees or whatnot. And there's other different ways to do that across other avenues as well. Then we can look at investment funds or investment income. So investment income represents funds generated from the investment of available resources. And this can look different for different areas. But, most of the public, nonprofit, and commercial enterprises out there in our field are allowed to invest in this type of thing. Investment of any money is always made with somebody who has a little bit of expertise or is an expert in the area of investment for the public, nonprofit, or commercial sectors, depending on which one you're in. Investments over a short period of time can allow an organization to reap some benefits from that investment, making your money work for you, so to speak. Nonprofit organizations may use such investments as a major source of their revenue, depending on if they've got a large amount invested or even a small, but they could use those dividends or the interest to make part of their budget, right? And in some cases, it's a very large part of their budget. All right, so we'll close out this talking about contractual receipts. And contractual receipts are revenues that are generated from legal agreements with other organizations. And I like to think about this as this is an agreement for somebody to do something and generate income for you. So think about this as somebody running the concessions at your local sports complex. You can enter an agreement with a business that they're going to facilitate the entire process. So they're going to do the work to hire and train and facilitate people working the vending booths or the vending areas, or concessions, if you will. They're going to have to do with all the inventory, buying, purchasing, and all that, and so forth. They've got the whole operation. You're providing the space as far as, the building where these concessions are going to be located. And then you're going to have the folks that are there for the tournaments or the games or whatnot, right? So what happens, excuse me, you could either pay them to manage it and you keep all the profit or revenue from that, or there's an agreement where they're managing it and they retain a portion of the proceeds, or they only give a portion of the proceeds to you as far as the organization goes. So a contract is a term that describes what we are doing as far as our financial exchanges overall. It's important to remember that management of that contract isn't just simple and easy at all times. You need to have a good understanding of how to develop, manage, and conclude a contract, and it takes a lot of time to get that exactly correct. So I would say it takes a little bit of expertise to make sure that that's done to the nth degree and to the way it needs to be done. And that concludes talking about licenses, permits, and contracts.